Good morning guys, Jan 26 CA Inter batch. I hope everyone is doing well. This video is a very nice video. It will help you complete the chapter called exemptions. We started exemption in parts and that is the way to study the chapter as well. After every chapter of GST example, you've started a chapter called supply, do 2 exemptions. After you finish charge, do 2 exemptions. In parts, exemptions can be done very easily and this is manageable. If you are looking to complete your exemption, you can just blindly watch this video and you can finish your preparation and go in the exam and write your sum also, because here there is no presentation which is mattered. Exemption chapter, it's a very simple chapter in a way of presentation. You just need to present those supply which is exempt, you will write 0 in the amounts column, and those supply which are taxable, you will write the amount in the amount column. Perfect. Let's go ahead and let's start this chapter called exemptions. Chaliye start karte hain. Before we go to exemptions, we'll briefly talk about the exemption that we've already finished also, so you get a little idea. First, what is exemption? Exemption basically means that those supplies where the government says, I don't want any GST, and they've categorized them into 3 N's. What are these 3 N's? That's a shortcut. First, the government says, I want nil rate of duty. Second, the government says these goods are not taxable. Example, Schedule 3, petrol, diesel, etc. And third, the government has exempted them through a notification number 12 of 2017. In the year 2017, the 12th notification was this notification where the government says, on these goods and on these services, we don't want any GST. Now, goods are outside. Goods are not part of the whole curriculum of CA Inter exemption. So, we will not talk about exemption on goods because there are so many goods. The ICA said, listen, so you don't have to do it. But services under the bracket of exemption. So, which are the services which are exempted? Let's try and see that. This is what it is. Here we go. Exempt as 3 N, section 11 of GST Act, also section 6 of the IGST Act talks about exemptions. Exemptions are given to general public also. In case of goods are not applicable to CA exams, and notification number 12 of 2017. Exemptions for religious and charitable trust. Have we already covered that? Let's check. Religious and charitable trust. Okay, so we've not done this. So let's go in more detail. Guys, what is a trust? A trust is something or someone who is doing some good for the society. Example, Tirupati temple in Tirumala. Guys, they start a trust. It's a charitable trust. People can donate money and they use that money to run a hospital. Let's say they're doing a very good job. So the government says when you run that hospital and when you charge people for cataract operation, let's say 100 rupees cataract operation, on that the government says on a very nice note that I will not charge GST. So this is religious and charitable association. Let's understand what is their supply and which of those are not chargeable under GST. First, the government says if you are doing anything which is the nature of HERE. First, I'll explain and then we'll understand it, then we'll do the sums also. HERE. H basically means if you're a charitable and registered trust and you're doing something in the space of healthcare, or if you're doing something in the space of education, skill development, or if you're doing something to promote religion, spirituality, yoga, or to promote the environment, forest and wildlife, then in these cases, even if you make some money, this we don't want any GST, this will be completely exempt. Guys, the only condition is you should be a registered trust under the Income Tax Act. There is a section called 12AB. Under that, you should be registered. That section is not important for CA Inter preparation. Healthcare, we all know. Education, skill development, but skill development has to be for people over the age of 65 years in rural areas. That is something you should know. Next is our religion, spirituality, yoga is great. And E is basically environment, forest and wildlife. These are some of the objectives on which there will be no GST. Next, what else can they do? Can they run an old age home? Yes, they can run an old age home, and when they collect money for old age home also, it will be exempt. But there are 2 conditions. Of course, old age should be for people who are old age 60 years or more. And second, the amount that you collect should be only up to 25,000 per month. Only then it will be completely exempt. What else is exempt? Yoga camps. If you are running a yoga camp, example, people can stay, learn yoga, do pranayam, etc. And then you charge some money. It's a composite supply. If you remember from supply chapter, it's a composite supply. The main supply is yoga, and food and stay is basically something that is complementary, and hence the main supply yoga is exempt. So this one will also be exempt. Whatever charge they take will be completely exempt. Next, can they run a sports camp? Yes, they can run a sports camp, but for recreational activity. Recreational basically means hobby. So teaching some teenagers how to learn tennis, cricket, hockey, etc. And they collect some money. That is also going to be completely exempt. What else can they do? Guys, when you go to Tirupati temple, sometimes you want to rent a room there and stay there so that you can visit the temple well. Also, sometimes you want to get married there, have a baby engagement there, baby shower there. For all that, they have halls and they have shops. That is called precincts. Precincts means in the surrounding of the temple, not very far away, attached to the temple. They say that if the room you are charging for, or if you are charging for that hall, or if you are charging for that shop, then it has to be less than room less than 1,000, hall less than 10K, and shop less than 10k, room and hall of course per day, and shop per month. If it's less than, even if it's equal to, there will be GST. So only it is less than, guys. How do you remember less than? Because guys, it's a charity, obviously they will charge less. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. Only precincts. Now, besides that, what if they do something which is in the form of an advertisement? What if Tirupati temple starts giving hoardings or advertisement? Then it will be completely taxable. What if they purchase an AC for the temple, etc., for the temple office? That is also taxable. So the only input services which is exempt, that means the only receipt or the only input which is exempt for them is this. If for the charitable activities, example the cataract operation, if they take bahar se services, that means if they take imported services, only and only for charitable activities, and only if they take imported services, then on that the government says on this input services we don't want any GST, this will be completely exempt. Now this one is for religious and charitable trust. Remember, they should be registered. What if people are not registered? What about them? What are the exemptions for them? Let's discuss. If you're not registered, basically this is for all, A for all. If you do coaching in arts form, example, you're a Kathak dancer or a Bharatanatyam dancer, or if you do any Indian classical art, painting, etc., if you train all of that, that is completely exempt. This A for all, A for arts. Sports training, you should be registered. Yes. Next, if you are a Pandit or a priest, example, you are getting Anand Ambani and Radhika Merchant, I think that's her name, you're getting them married, and you're a priest and you get a lot of money on that, a priest, a Maulana, a father in a church, all that, a nun, guys, when they get money, this is completely exempt. This is for all, no registration required. And if you're someone who's organizing a Hajj committee, and if you're someone who's called Hajj committee and they're organizing a Hajj trip, and if you're someone who's Kumao Mandal Vikas Nigam and you're organizing a Char Dham Yatra, then in that case, only these two cases, it will be completely exempt. But remember, Hajj committee, only then. If it's Hajj trip is organized by Kesari Tours, then there will be GST, and this Char Dham Yatra by some fancy tour organization, this will also be subject to GST. Let's read. Let's see what is this. Exemptions here. Healthcare, education, environment and religion, promotion, yoga, residential yoga camps, hospitals run by charities. One more thing, if I give pure donation, what do you mean by pure donation? If I go to Tirupati Trust and I donate 1 lakh rupees and pray that, listen, make me pass in CA, final CA, enter exams, then there is no pure donation, there is no GST. Precincts of rooms, we've discussed this, recreational sports activities, old age home, up to 25,000. And this is not registered by all. All is arts and culture training, religious organization, Hajj committee, and Kumao Mandal Vikas Nigam. All other services will be subject to GST. Inward supplies, the only one inward supply is when there is Bahar se services for charitable activities. Otherwise, guys, this is located outside India. Bahar se services for providing charitable activities, this is exempt. Now that we've done this, we can now go ahead and we can look at the Q&A book. And in the Q&A book, we can look at the sums. This is charitable activities. Let's see in charitable activities if you are able to answer the questions from charitable activities. These are all the exemptions. We'll go to the Q&A book. And we go to exemptions, page 44. Okay. Divya Kripa Trust, an entity registered under section 12AA. Now that section has become 12AB of the Income Tax Act, has furnished the following details with respect to the activities undertaken by it. You are required to compute its GST liability from the information given below. Amount received for yoga camps organized for elderly people, this is completely exempt, so you will put amount 0. What you have to do is, you have to write the last line, computation of GST liability of Divya Kripa Trust, particulars amount, and you have to just write this line and just write exempt under notification of 12/2017, 12 of 2017, and in the amount column you have to just put a 0. Next is payment made for the services received by a service provider located in the US for the purpose of providing charitable activities. This is that one input services, this is also exempt. Amount received for counseling of mentally disabled persons, this is also healthcare, this is also exempt, 0. Amount received for renting of commercial property, this is not a room in the precinct, this one will be taxable. Amount received for activities relating to preservation of forest and wildlife, this is exempt. So only one thing is taxable, 1,50,000. We move ahead. A temple is owned and managed by a registered trust. There are 10 rooms in the guest house attached to the temple. During a 3-day religious campaign, the rooms were provided on rent by the trust to the devotees of the temple who had travelled from various religious places at a price of 1,750. This is expensive. There will be GST. It has to be less than 1,000. Shop for 7,500 per month. Yeah, this is exempt. So if you cross that limit, there is a particular limit. Above that, it will become taxable. Ekta Charitable Trust, registered under the Income Tax Act, manages a temple in Rohini, Delhi. It is given on rent a community hall located within the temple premises to public for celebration of Tej Mela. Rent charges 9,500. This is completely exempt, no problem at that. MTCT, an entity registered under the Income Tax Act, has furnished you the following details with respect to the activities undertaken by it. You are required to compute its GST liability from the information given below. Fees charged for yoga camp conducted by the trust. This is exempt, 0. Amount received for advancement of educational programs related to abandoned, orphaned and homeless children. Again guys, the intention here is to help the people and hence there is no GST. Amount received for renting commercial property. This is taxable. Payment made for services received from service provider located in England for charitable activities. This is exempt. Amount received for activities linked to preservation of forest and wildlife. This is exempt. Receipts of old age home and per member is only 5,000 rupees. This is also exempt. So only one thing taxable, that is 35 lakh rupees. On that, GST is 18%, that is 6,30,000. So this is the concept of charitable and religious trust. This is one more done. Let's move ahead to the next one now. Let's see which is the next one. We will go over through the list. Even if it's done, we'll just briefly talk about it. So this is charitable and religious trust done. Next is agriculture. Let's see if agriculture is done. Yes, agriculture is done. But we'll briefly talk about agriculture as well. And I'll tell you the main points which you need to be careful. Guys, in agriculture, a couple of things you should be careful of. In agriculture, the government is saying, listen, you're a farmer, you're helping the entire country. It's a very nice thing. So we'll exempt your produce. If you grow tomatoes, sell tomatoes, you will be exempt. Things you should be careful about. If you change the essential characteristics from tomatoes, you make tomato ketchup and you sell, that is not exempt. That is first thing. Tea is exempt, tea leaves, but if you make tea powder, then it's not exempt. Coffee beans is exempt, coffee powder. So if you change the essential characteristic, it is not exempt. Rice is exempt, paddy is exempt, but if you change paddy into rice, that is taxable. Be careful about paddy to rice. Now, when you store them, load them, unload them, warehouse them, on that charge also there will be no GST because it's agricultural produce. In this case, there's an exception. If paddy is also exempt and if you store rice also, even though paddy to conversion of rice is a taxable activity, but when you store rice, warehouse rice, unload it, load it, etc., that is exempt. That's an exception. Keep in mind. Next, fumigation of warehouse. So you have to fumigate so pesticides don't come. That earlier used to be exempt, now it's taxable. Keep that also in mind. And if on the farmhouse, on the farm, agricultural farm, you need animals and you do artificial insemination, it's a scientific technology to produce more cows. If you do that, great. Any animal is great except horses. Horses, that will be taxable. So this is the concept of agricultural. You can move ahead. If you understand a little bit Hindi, I have a complete exemptions video in Hindi where all the exemptions are discussed in great detail. You can try and watch that as well. You will really enjoy and you will finish your exemptions with me in that case. Let's go to the next one. Next one is healthcare services. Let's see if healthcare services has been discussed. Healthcare service discussed. So let's just talk about the main part. Guys, healthcare services means you're a doctor or you're a hospital or you're a clinic, you're providing services. Now, one thing that is called cord blood bank. So basically you take stem cells. How it works is there's a small baby. When the small baby is born, you take some stem cells and you preserve them. So later on you can heal that baby. That is now taxable. First. Second thing you need to be careful about, I'm not discussing the whole thing. I'm only talking about the things that are important to you. IVF is artificial reproduction. It's a healthcare. It's a very important thing. So that the government has put exemption. Next. If you take a very luxurious room in a hospital, the government said you can take such a luxurious room, you can also afford to pay GST. Any room rent more than 5,000 rupees will be subject to GST, only that room rent charges. But if it's an ICU, then 5,000, 10,000, no limit. For ICU, there will be no limit, something you should again be careful about. Anything else in healthcare services? I think that's about it. Healthcare. Ambulance is exempt, diagnostic service is exempt, but medicines on that there is taxable, but we're not talking about that because those are goods. All right. Food supplied, you have to be careful about. Rehab, okay. Vet also, services, all right. Next is services related to the government, okay. This is something that we will talk about in a little more detail before we move ahead. So I'm going to talk about services related to the government in a little more detail. And services first provided by the government, and then we will talk about services provided to the government. Guys, this is the government, and let's see which are the services provided by the government which are exempt. Guys, the government is liable to provide you some services which are entrusted by them to by the constitution. Example, issuance of passport, issuance of your driving license. In all these cases, the government says, listen, we'll charge you money, but we'll not charge you GST. This is completely exempt. Next, if you have some premises and there is fire safety conducted by the government, fire testing, fire safety, etc., and they give you a license, on that also there is no GST. This is also completely exempt. Next, let's talk about something more. if the government provides services to businesses which are small business entities. Small business entities basically means those business entities which were not liable to be registered last year because their turnover only did not increase more than 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 40 lakh. In that case also it is completely exempt. If you're providing services to big business entities means those business entities which are registered last year and this year also, then this is basically up to 5,000 rupees. If you're providing some services, that is also completely exempt. But remember, all these exemptions will not work in 4 cases called trap. I'll tell about what is trap later. But if you are providing services, if you are the government and you're providing services in the nature of trap, then this is exemption will not be there. There will be GST in case of trap. Now, what is trap? First, if you are giving transportation of passengers and goods, example, railways, you are Indian Railways and you're giving AC train ticket to passengers, then on the AC train ticket, there will be GST under FCM. Next are, if you're renting immovable property, again, doesn't matter whom you're renting to, it will be subject to GST under FCM. Next, if you're leasing aircraft and vessel, aircraft you already know, vessel means ship. If you rent those, this is aviation and vessel renting. And last, postal services. If you have postal services, example, you have a speed post, then on that there is GST, doesn't matter to whom you're providing services to. Let's move to government services and continue. When the government provides services to each other, if they are providing services to each other, then it is completely exempt. There is no problem there. Next, let's keep listing them down. Now guys, government sometimes gives a guarantee. If a PSU wants to take a loan, a public sector undertaking, let's say BSNL wants to take a loan, they're not getting a loan. So the government can give a guarantee and they will charge a guarantee fee, but on that guarantee fee, there is no GST, it is completely exempt. Next, there is something called non-toleration or non-tolerance of performance or tolerating non-performance. First, I'll explain what this tolerating non-performance is and then I'll tell you the exemption. Tolerating non-performance. Guys, you were supposed to supply some steel to the government body, but let's say to the Indian Railways, but you got delayed, and because of that, they had a condition that if you delay the supply of steel to Indian Railways, they will charge you tolerating non-performance. Because you did not perform, they will tolerate you and they will charge you a small fine of 10 lakh rupees. On that, there is no GST, only because it is the government. The same thing done by a private company will be taxable. So this is tolerating non-performance. These are some of the government services which are exempt from GST. There is no GST on these. Anything else? Yes, very recently new added in the railways. If you have any visiting ticket, platform ticket it's called. So if you buy any platform ticket in the railways or any waiting room charges or cloak room charges, then in those charges there will be no GST. It will be completely exempt. Let's move ahead. Any function entrusted by the municipality by the constitution. Speed post, this will be taxable. Post, aircraft vessel leasing will be taxable. Transportation of passengers and goods will be taxable. And guys, this is taxable. These are 4 trap. I have told you the shortcut here. Next, consideration, if it's a service provided to a big business entity, but the consideration up to 5,000 rupees, there will be no GST. This we've already discussed. Any consideration in the form of grants, if you give grants anyways, there is no supply. If you're guaranteeing loans of some PSUs, on that there is no GST. Passport, visa, driving license, birth certificate, this is basically responsibility of the government, so there is no GST. Tolerating non-performance of the contract, also there is no GST. Let's see what is tolerating non-performance. The Public Works Department of Karnataka entered into an agreement with Messrs ABC, a construction company, for construction of its office complex for an agreed consideration. In the agreement on 10 July 2024, it was agreed by both the parties that Messrs ABC shall complete the construction work and hand over the project by 31st December. It is further agreed that any breach of the terms would give right to the other party to claim damages, did not complete the contract and did not hand over the project. Now on these damages, guys, 10 lakh rupees paid to the demand, non-performance of the contract, there is no GST. This one will be completely exempt from payment of tax. Alright. Next, fire testing, any fire license, completely GST is exempt. Right to use for agriculture, natural resources exempt. Yes, this one I have not spoken. Right, when you import and export, sometimes the customs officer have to check what you're importing and export, and because of that, they have to stay extra hours at the port. That extra hours, when they charge you money, guys, on that there is no GST. Merchant overtime charges, that's called, there is no GST on that. And excess royalty collection contractor, this is basically when they give you a right to do some petroleum mining, etc., and they collect some royalty, on that there is no GST. So this is services provided by the government, yes. And let's try and see what is it. But before that, let's talk a little about postal services also. Let's finish that. I think postal service has been done. So let me recap. If you go to the post office, some postal services are exempt. The shortcut is books RIP. I can't write here, so I'll write here. Books RIP. What is this books RIP? Let's talk about it. Just one second. Books RIP means if you do any book post or registered post or inland post or postal order, then in that case there is no GST. And basic pension saved money. Any basic saving bank deposit account, any pension services, any savings account or any money order also will not be subject to GST. This is the post office. Besides that, guys, in the post office, if you do insurance, if you buy mutual funds, if you do even a speed post, that is subject to GST under FCM. We're talking about, this is agriculture. Let's talk about government services, exemptions. And let's talk about government providing services. Okay. Let's see what is this. This is postal services. Basic mail services is completely exempt. Transfer of money through money orders exempt. Operation of savings account exempt. Rural postal life insurance, this one is taxable. Distribution of bonds and passport application taxable. Issuance of postal orders exempt. Collection of telephone and electricity bills taxable. Pension payment services exempt. Speed post taxable. Express post taxable. So 200 plus 500 700 plus 100 800, 800 plus 200 and 500, 1500 rupees will be taxable. Here we go, 1500 rupees will be taxable. The Karnataka Cricket Association requests the Commissioner of Police Bangalore to provide security in and around the cricket stadium for the purpose of conducting the cricket match. Guys, all this is taxable. The government says even if police officer are deputed, we are doing you some service, so this will be taxable. Services provided by the government to various individuals by way of issuance of a driving license, this is not taxable, this is exempt. Services provided by BIRAC approved bio incubators to incubatees. Guys, this we have not spoken about, but this is also exempt. Incubatees means when they give services for startups, this will come in miscellaneous expenses or miscellaneous exemptions. Transportation of passengers by ropeway. Ropeway is completely exempt. The government wants to encourage it, exempt. Express post parcel services, this one is taxable. 8 lakh rupees is taxable. All right. So ropeway is taxable here. Let me just confirm it if ropeway is taxable or not. One second. Yes, a small change, guys. Here, ropeway is taxable. Toll is exempt. When you go on tolls is exempt. Ropeway is taxable. All right. This is schools. Again, this is not something that we are doing right now. This is basically services provided by the government. Now let's move ahead. Let's see what is the next one in our scheme of services. Services provided to the government. Excellent. Guys, this is also very interesting. First, let's understand what is this government services provided to the government, and then we'll talk about it. Guys, you are a company, let's say ABC, and you are providing services, but you're not providing services to random people, you're providing services to the government. Let's see which of these services are exempt. When you provide pure labor services, what do you mean by pure labor? Basically, that means if let's say the municipality wants the street lights changed, and they say for street light repair, I'll give you the content, and you are giving doing all the street light repair for the municipal body, and you're charging them, let's say 10 lakh rupees. The government says on the pure labor service, there is no GST. It is completely exempt. Along with labor, you also are supplying goods. That means you're not just repairing the street lights, but you're also changing the bulb. But that is goods is only up to 25% of the total bill value. Then again, this will be exempt. But remember, only up to 25%. Next. You are basically conducting a training program for the government. The government said, listen, I want all my officers to be trained on Excel or to train on AI, how to use AI. And you're conducting a training program where 75% or more of the expenditure is borne by the government. Then it's a government training program only, completely exempt. If you're helping the government run the GST network, guys, GST network is basically a network where you do all the return filing, etc. If you conduct that, or if you do that for the government, it's completely exempt. Next, if you run ration shops, they're called free price shops or fair price shops for the government, that is services completely exempt. So these are some exemptions where services are provided to the government. This is basically something you have to remember. Goods and services for implementation of GST, GST network, any training program where 75% or more expenditure is borne by the government. Any insurance premium, total premium is paid by the government. This is basically discussed in general and life insurance. This is fair price shop. This is exempt. And any activity where it is basically a responsibility of the government to do it and they entrusted you to do only pure labor contract. And goods also is okay, but goods should be up to 25%. I'm just reading it. Pure services means supply of services. And can there be goods also? Yes, but only up to 25%. Let me read that also. Only up to 25% it will exempt if it's also goods. Let's read. Supply of manpower for cleanliness of roads, public spaces, architect services, consulting engineer services, advisory services, and like services provided by business entities not involving any supply of goods would be a supply of pure services. On the other hand, let's take the example of a government authority awarding the works contract or street lights in a municipal area to an agency which involves, apart from maintenance, replacement of defunct lights and other spares. So this is not pure services, this is goods as well as services. But if it's up to 25% goods value, then there will be no GST. This is basically government services. Now let's move ahead to the next one. Let's see which is the next one. This is the Q&A book. Okay. Even if we've done, we'll talk about the main part so that you are well versed with it. This is education. Remember, in education, what has changed? Yes. When you get affiliation, that means if you're a college or a school, you get affiliation, triple A grade, B grade affiliation from the university. On that affiliation, the university can charge you some money and there will be GST. But if the government gives an affiliation to university that from today onwards you are a university, then on that there is no GST. That is something new in education. All right. This is education. Otherwise, education, there's nothing very different. Banking services. Have we discussed banking services? Let me check. So let's discuss banking services in a little more detail. And first I'll read it and then we'll do it from here. First I'll explain, we'll read and then we'll go on to the sums. Now guys, banking services basically means when you go to an SBI bank, HDFC bank and you do banking services, are they exempt, are they taxable is what I'm talking about. So let's take an example of a bank. Let's take India's best bank or the bank which has the longest lunch break, SBI bank. And when they provide services, what happens? Let's understand. When one bank provides services to another bank, and this is in relation to forex, buying and selling of forex, then they can charge each other money, but there will be no GST. This is completely exempt. I'm putting here the taxable part. Earlier guys, when RBI used to provide services, guys, RBI services earlier used to be exempt. RBI services are now taxable. Keep that in mind. Next, when the banks give you interest or they charge you interest, they can call it interest or they can call it finance charges. On all these interest or finance charges, they will never charge any GST to you. So example, if you take a car loan, you bought your favorite car, but it's on loan, you're paying EMI. On the interest amount, there will be no GST. So interest, any finance charges, whatever word they call it, bill discounting, they can call that word also. But ultimately, all that is interest. What is bill discounting? I have a 1 lakh rupee bill and a person is supposed to pay me 1 lakh. After a few months, I go to the bank, I give them the bill, they pay me 95,000 today only. That 5,000 rupees, which is less, that's the interest that I paid them. On that also, there is no GST. But if it's a credit card interest, that's why credit card are dangerous. On the credit card interest, there will be GST. So credit card interest is taxable. Next, let's move ahead. Guys, banks have a very basic saving bank deposit account. In Jan Dhan Yojana, the government has started these basic savings and bank deposit account. And when they provide these accounts, this one will be completely exempt. But what about I have another account, a premium account? For that, interest is exempt, but the check issuance, then late payment charges, any other charges or all those are taxable. All right, next guys, when there is a check bouncing case and in the check bouncing case there is any GST? No, there is no GST. Let's move ahead here. When you go to shopping and you shop, I'll tell you how you use a credit card and what happens. Let's say you go and buy a mobile phone, 1 lakh rupees mobile phone, and you swipe your card. When you swipe your card, the bank takes the money and gives it to the vendor. You pay the bank later on. And this process, when you swipe the card, this processing, the banks use a processing charge, and that there is GST. But if you use your credit card and you use your debit card, up to 2,000 rupees swipe, that means your swipe is only not up to 1 lakh, up to 2,000 rupees, then the processing charge, there will be no GST. This is completely exempt, the processing charges. Next, anything else in banking? Yes. Guys, banks can't reach the entire country, so they have something called business correspondent and bank facilitators. When they provide services to rural branches, example, if they provide services to SBI rural branch, then on that amount they will charge, but there will be no GST. This will be completely exempt. These are services provided by the bank. Let's move ahead now and see what is the discussion here, and then we'll take a look at the questions as well. Reserve Bank of India is now taxable. This one has been removed. Banks authorize dealers when they give services to each other for forex. This is exempt. Extending deposits, loans and advances consideration represented by way of interest or discount. This is completely exempt by whatever name called. Interest on FD, loan, mortgage, corporate deposit, whatever word. Invoice discounting or check discounting completely exempt. But service charge, documentation, broking, admin, all that there will be GST are not exempt and liable to GST. Any interest, delayed payment charges to clients for delay in payment of brokerage amount, all this is again interest, there will be no GST, is exempt from GST. Late payment of outstanding dues on credit card. Credit card interest will be subject to GST, and that's why people say credit card are dangerous. Basic saving bank deposit account, completely exempt. Jan Dhan Yojana, hence the government said exempt. Up to 2,000 rupees in a single transaction on the processing fees, there will be no GST. Business facilitator and bank correspondent, but only if it's in the rural branch. If it's in the urban branch, then this one is covered under RCM. We know the chapter charge of GST. All right. This is what it is. This is banking services. Let's see some sums on banking services. Okay. Apna Bank Limited, a scheduled commercial bank, has furnished the following details for the month of August. Let's see which is extending housing loan to customers. When you give money, money is not under GST. No GST on this. Processing fees, this will be subject to GST. Commission from customers on bank guarantee, any commission on bank guarantee subject to GST. Income, interest on credit card subject to GST. Interest on housing loan not subject to GST. Minimum balance charge subject to GST. So 20 plus 30, 50, 50, 40, 90, 91 is the amount that is subject to GST. Let's see if there's anything else on bank. Yes. Guys, here amount charged by business correspondent from banking company for the services provided to the rural branch of the bank, rural areas, guys, this is exempt. Anything else for banks? Yes. No, this is from ITC chapter. This is not from exemption. Guys, this one is the exemption on banking services. Let's move ahead. This is banking. This is the end of this first part of exemptions. Let's go to the second part of exemptions. Exemptions part 2. We'll keep going through the exemption. Whichever I have done, I'll tell you the main points so that you are well versed. Construction services, guys, again in construction services there is a Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. For that, if you're providing any services to create a house or to repair a house, no problem, no GST, but it should be pure labor services again. But and if you're creating other than the Yojana, if I'm making an independent house, not part of a residential complex, independent house, difference is if I'm staying in a building, Loda apartment where there are 100 flats, that no. But if I have a land and I'm making a residential house, in that if I have, but it has to be constructed, not repair and all, then also labor services when the contractor gives, there is no GST. Next, electricity distribution, when you have a tube well and you need a tower, electricity tower, and your electricity company makes the tower for you, on that there is no GST. Passenger transport also we've done, yes. Have you covered passenger transport? Yes, but main I want to tell you, air travel is expensive, there is GST, but northeast and regional connectivity scheme airports, no GST. Train is also exempt, but if it's AC or first class, GST. Stage carriage, yes. I just wanted to explain that if you book a bus, non-AC, the government doesn't want to charge GST, but unless you book that bus on an e-commerce operator, then there will be GST, and same goes for cab also. So bus called stage carriage and cabs means contract carriage. This is passenger transport. Anything new in this? No, I think that's about it. Goods transport. If you transport goods fast, express cargo, courier service, air, taxable, through railways, Dr. Nam, you remember, through GTA also there is a separate GTA discussion we've done, and waterways the government wants to encourage, so there is no GST on waterways. Indian space research, so satellite launch services are exempt from GST because the government wants more people to launch satellites from India. Goods transport is done. Let's talk about insurance. Is insurance done? Yes. Life insurance, I'll just briefly tell you. Life insurance, if it's done for Army, Navy, Air Force and Police from the government, not from Bajaj or HDFC, exempt. And micro life insurance where the insured amount is just 2 lakh rupees, that is also exempt. And reinsurance is also exempt. So if the insurance company goes again and reinsures that same amount, then in that case also it is exemption. General insurance is also exempt. Any government scheme it is exempt. And any needy people like cattle, tribal people, women help group, all these Bima Yojana, any Yojana guys in the exam will be completely exempt. General insurance is also okay. We move ahead. Services by specified bodies. Here I just want to tell you now RBI, SEBI and IRDA, when they provide services now they are subject to GST. So they are like any body, they will be subject to GST, but still pension scheme, provident fund scheme, coal mine provident scheme and NPS guys, they provide services. This is still exempt. This is pension scheme, leasing services. Let's talk about what is leasing. Leasing basically means I'm giving a place on rent. Leasing if done, yes, we'll recap it. Leasing basically means I am a government or a government body where at least 20% of the company is owned by me, I'm the government, and I'm leasing out some land to you for 30 years or more. Condition, the leasing should be done by the government. The leasing should be done for 30 years or more to you, and you should be using for industrial use or financial use. Then on that lease, there is no GST. This is leasing services exemption. Legal services, advocates, yes, we've done that, but just want to say legal services can be under RCM. If let's say I'm a lawyer, I'm providing services to the government, no GST. To small business entities, no GST. To personal purposes like a divorce case, no GST. To big business entity, GST under RCM. And remember, when a senior advocate provides services to another advocate, then there will be GST. That is an exception for senior advocate. Services by unincorporated body. Let's recap this also. Guys, there are 3 unincorporated bodies. Let's talk about the first one. Let's talk about the first, which is a resident welfare association. My apartment has 100 flats. How do you maintain them? We've done this in class, so I'm just recapping. How do you maintain them? There is a resident welfare association who maintains it. And for my flat, whatever the maintenance total is, they divide it by the number of flats and they give me a bill at the end of the month. That's called maintenance charge. If that maintenance charge is more than 7,500 rupees, then there will be GST. If it's less than 7,500 per flat, not per person. If I have 2 flats, 15,000, 7,500, 7,500, no GST. And in this case, if there are any direct charges, like for my apartment, there is a municipal tax, there's electricity bill, you have to exclude the direct charge. These are common charges, only that, and this is exemption is only for resident. In my same building, there is an office or there is a shop, on that there is no exemption up to 7,500. Next, if it's for the welfare of industrial labor, farmers, etc., then up to 1,000 per year, if they collect some fee, there will be no GST. Right to admission of events, we've done already. There's nothing new in this. Miscellaneous. Let's talk about miscellaneous. If there's something new, I'll talk about it. Transfer pricing, going concern, selling an entity on going concern, this is okay. Residential, this is very important, so let's discuss. I have an apartment, I want to give it out on rent. Is it exempt? Yes. If I'm giving it to someone who's unregistered, definitely exempt, no problem with that. If I'm giving to a registered proprietor who's using it for residential purpose, we'll make a shortcut called RPR. Registered proprietor using for residential purpose, again there is no GST. On everything else, there will be GST under RCM. Hotels now are taxable. Guys, passengers, these vehicles to be given on rent. If I'm a goods transport vehicle, example a truck, and I'm giving it on rent, there will be no GST. And if it's a passenger transport vehicle, more than 12 passengers, I'm giving it on rent. Again, there is no GST, but condition. It should be given to a state transport undertaking. And if it's given to a local authority, that truck or that bus should be an electric bus. These are miscellaneous ones. We've discussed all this in the class. I'm just recapping it for you, the important ones. Toll, there is no GST. Electricity. Let's talk about electricity, guys. Guys, now there is a small change here. So if you read this has changed. I'll tell you about it. Electricity, guys, if you get an electricity bill, there is no GST. But on electricity, you can remove this now. The meter reading, the meter renting, the repair, the duplicate bill, all that on that also now there is no GST. This has been exempted. If you want to see this kind of amendments and what my GST amendment video, I've uploaded that on Yeshas YouTube channel also and mine YouTube channel also, and you can watch from there. This is services provided by Incubatee. This we've discussed already. Collecting news, public libraries, anything important, I'll tell you about it. Sponsorship also, there is a small change, I'll tell you about it. Guys, if IPL is providing services to a company or a partnership firm, then it is taxable under FCM. But there is a small, under RCM, sorry. But a small change, if the person who's providing the service, example, IPL is a company, then they will not see anything. It is completely under FCM now. This all amendments have been discussed in one sheet in GST amendments on the YouTube channel. All right. Performance by an artist, we've already seen. Badshah concert. This is what are exemptions. These are some of the exemptions that were pending and we've done those exemptions. I'm also going to discuss a rule called Rule 86B right now in this video so that you can watch it and complete your discussion on Rule 86B also. But my suggestion is please watch the GST amendment video, which is very, very important, and you will understand a lot of amendments from that video itself. Let's talk about what is Rule 86B. First, we'll understand something here. I'm electric bike company and I'm making some supplies and supply leads to liability. My liability for the month, I made a supply, let's say of 12 lakh rupees. I'm just taking random numbers, 12 lakh, and that my liability for the month is 2 lakh rupees. I need to pay 2 lakh to the government. And I'm also purchasing PC, purchase leads to credit. So this is how my liability ledger looks like. My liability ledger, I have a liability to pay 2 lakh rupees. But in my credit ledger, I have a lot of credit. I already have, let's say 5 lakh rupees of credit. So can I discharge my liability as my credit ledger? Yes, of course you can. This was a situation till the government realized that everyone is discharging their liability through the credit ledger. No one is paying through the cash ledger. This cash ledger is completely empty. So then what happened? The government started begging the people and they introduced a rule called Rule 86B, B for begging. I'll tell you what is in this rule. First of all, who does it apply to? This rule applies to only those registered persons whose monthly sale goes more than 10 lakh rupees. So if your monthly sale is about 10 lakh rupees, for that month, this section or this rule are applicable. If this month's sale is more than 10 lakh but next month is not, then next month it will not apply. So the monthly sales have to be more than 10 lakh rupees. Then only for that month rule 86B will apply. But what is this rule? This rule says that whenever discharging a liability, example 2 lakh rupees, at least 1% of 2 lakh. What is 1% of 2 lakh rupees? 2000. Just 1% has to be paid through the cash ledger. Has to be, yes, has to be. That means some amount is now going through the cash ledger. So you'll have to deposit 2000 rupees and then pay to the government. So this is the rule 86B. They say this is through the cash ledger. Can I give more to the cash ledger? Yes, no problem. But at least 1% of the monthly liability has to be discharged to the cash ledger. Then this rule 86B does not apply to 4 people. The shortcut is here. Tax refunded in cash by the government. Let's see what are these 4 exceptions. First, if you're a central government, state government, or a government body, then in that case, this rule does not apply to you. So you can pay through credit ledger. Yes. Next, if till this month, we are right now in the month of December. So from April to November, all the months, if you total up your liability and you see how much you pay through cash ledger total, let's say my total liability has been 1 crore and I paid through cash ledger 20 lakh. That means 20% I've already paid through cash ledger. That means every month I'm anyways paying 1% through cash ledger. Then this rule does not apply. This is people who are already paying a lot of cash. If last year you got a GST refund of more than 1 lakh rupees, then you're anyways paying a lot of GST, don't pay it in cash. And this is direct tax, guys. Income tax means GST in the last 2 years, not 1 year. In the last, this is 1 year, this is 2 years. In the last 2 years, if you have got a refund of income tax, the government has said, listen, you paid me extra, take it back. And you got refund of income tax of 1 lakh rupees or more for 2 years. This is 2 years, this is 1 year. This is income tax refund, this is GST refund. Then you're anyways paying a lot of tax to the government. This rule will not apply. This is rule 86B. Guys, this is it. This is the video. Watch this video. For anything else, I have a doubt solving group. I hope you've joined the doubt solving group, because if you have a doubt, I am happy to help you, but only on that group. So make sure you're on that group and watch the amendment video. I also have a revise with me series going on, a little bit of Hindi there, but you will still understand it. So watch the revise with me videos as well. Do this well. All the best. Any help, I'm here. All the best for your exams.